Welcome to Proline Daily, the longest-running sports handicapping show in America. With Jim Feist, I'm Dave Cokin, coming to you direct from the home of the Raiders, Las Vegas, Nevada. It is Final Four week. Plenty of NBA still rolling. I've got an NHL free play coming up on today's program. Jim, it just keeps rolling along, 60-40 now with the college basketball.
It's been a great year. I hate to see it end, of course, but it's on to the NBA playoffs and baseball. But I'm excited about what we've accomplished in football and basketball, and now we continue. So I'm at 45 and 23 NBA run as well, plus $1,900 for my clients, including my Western Conference total of the month last night with Denver and Portland sailed over the total. I have my NBA Shocker of the Year tonight. It's $79 at jimfeist.com, plus my NBA High Roller Platinum Game of the Year. It's a $500 value play, and you can get that for just $50 with a guarantee by calling my offices on Wednesday, which is today, 866-546-9467.
Pretty good stuff, to put it mildly. I'm still rolling along. The baseball preseason has been fantastic. Got two more plays today. Won them both yesterday. Baskets, I missed with Central Florida last night. Split the NHL, winner with Edmonton, and lost it overtime with the Rangers. That was a tough one because they gave up a tying goal with about 2 minutes to go, then hit a crossbar in the overtime, then took a bad penalty, and you can't take a penalty in overtime. So still 3-2 for the day. No complaints with that. Big stuff coming up. And again, we're going to put this offer out. This is going to be for a full month of action for $350. Okay, you're going to get everything. All the opening month of baseball, NBA playoffs, whatever I've got this weekend, and the tournaments, which won't be much. The NHL, it's a lot of plays, a lot of action. And the last 2 months have been absolutely exceptional. But the last 2 months, if you just played $100, a flat $100 on every play I've given out, you'd be up $29.75 for February and $7.50 for this month. That's $38.50 or thereabouts for 2 months on $100 plays. If you're playing more than that, do the math. So take advantage of this special, 855-472-2577. It's the Wednesday edition, so let's get our poll question of the week results in. Jim, every Monday on our social media networks, we post a Proline poll question and then announce the results right here on the Wednesday show. And this week we asked, who wins the college basketball title this weekend? Jim, the envelope, please.
The envelope. And hopefully I announced the right winner so we don't have a big controversy like we did in the Emmys. But 40% of you out there, and we thank you for your votes, went with North Carolina, which is the favorite, of course. And Gonzaga got 36%, 14% went to Oregon, and 10% went to South Carolina. I'm not surprised by any of that. Both of the upper scale there are the favorites, so that kind of makes a lot of sense. The line movements on the game, I mean, I've seen some dog action on these games, yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of these dogs, or maybe both, get by these favorites and get to the finals. It's, they're really, I said it before, there's really no AAA team this year. Every team has flaws and good coaching, and you have 4 good coaches here, 4 good coaches that can take advantage of the flaws of their opponent. That isn't always the case. Sometimes you have teams that are just so good that, you just can't beat them because their flaws are not that big and you can't take advantage. But underdogs do pretty well when they're pretty competitive, when their talents are similar. So watch out for laying too much chalk in this stuff.
Well, what I'm hearing from the books, guys I speak with on a regular basis, both here, offshore, and some locations that would prefer to be kept quiet, is that they're pretty sure that the sharp players, the pros, are waiting on the Oregon game. They want that they will take Oregon, but that they want the right number. Now, the public action so far has been on the North Carolina side, and what I'm hearing is that they're going to probably jump in. Speaking of the sharp bettors, they're going to probably jump in at 5.5. That's the number they'd like. So far, that's not showing. Latest updates we have. Let's see. Going to the Saturday, going to the weekend stuff here. Let me check my Don Best screen. Seeing 4.5, and now I am seeing some 5. In fact, it's mostly 5 on North Carolina. So that looks like it could get to 5.5. I don't think they're going to ever get 6. So I would look for the pro money to start showing on Oregon at 5.5. The other game, Westgate here in Las Vegas, which I would consider to be a sharp house. They have Gonzaga now at 7. They're higher than anybody else on that game. 5 Dimes has 7 as well offshore, which would be considered a fairly sharp house. So I think what you're seeing there is a little sharp money on the Gonzaga side, but not a great deal. As the line opens 6.5, that's not a major push. Had this 7.5 or 8 shown on this game, then I would say it's significant, but I don't particularly think it is at this number. So let's look at oh, by the way, very quickly, let me mention that if you want to ask us any sports wagering questions, we've probably got a pretty good answer for you. Go to ProLineTV.com. And Jim, folks can also get 7 days of action free just by subscribing.
That's right. You can click on the subscribe button at Proline TV and get a week of service for free on me. Plus, go to JimFeist.com for free stats, articles, videos, my free fast facts, and plays from the nation's top handicappers.
So let's look a little bit at the matchups. I don't think we're going to give away plays on this. We will have a free play coming up in just a bit for one of tonight's games. South Carolina, they're just on a tremendous roll right now. Now, they are going to have some physical disadvantage in this game because Gonzaga is a huge team, absolutely huge. They're one of the biggest teams in the country. So will that diminish what South Carolina is doing defensively? Well, I don't know. All I can tell you is this. Frank Martin is about as good as it gets defensively in coming up with game plans to stop the opponent. South Carolina's questions have been on offense all season. We know their defense is really good. So, to me, if South Carolina's got their offense rolling like it has in this tournament, this isn't going to be an easy game for Gonzaga. The flip side of it, though, Gonzaga's got the monkey off their back now, Jim. I think the pressure is off the Zags. They've had so many years where, well, this is the year, and this is the year, and then they never made it to the Final Four. And now they have. So I think you're going to get a relaxed Gonzaga team here.
Well, Dave, there's a lot of emotional and psychological things at play here. South Carolina had a terrible run for a while where they lost a bunch of games. They just were out of sync. They lost Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Florida. They won a couple games, and they lost a couple more against Mississippi and Alabama. But then they got into the NC2As. And they played Marquette. And it was a neutral court, and they were a 1-point favorite. And the game, I think, was pretty close at halftime. And they came back and won that game 93-73. I don't know what happened at halftime in that game, but something happened to this team, and they just exploded from there. They then come out, and they're a 6.5-point dog. They win by 7 against Duke. They're a 3-point dog to Baylor. They win by 20 against Baylor. And then against Florida, who is a team that they had played before, they were a 3-point dog, and they won by 7. Every one of those games were outstanding performances for them. Now, when you look at the other side of it, I'm not giving you a pick here. I'm just giving you an analysis.
Right.
We all know that Gonzaga just went through everybody. They lost one game to Brigham Young where they had a huge lead and they choked. They just got out of sync for half a game, and BYU beat them. But BYU's had their number for a couple of years, so they've given them some trouble. But they started out against South Dakota State, which is a very low-rated team, They didn't have it. They didn't have much problem. They didn't cover. The pointless spread was 23. They won by 20. Then they played as a 10-point favorite. They played Northwestern. They beat them by 6, and that was a tough game for them because they had trouble holding the lead that they had. Then they played West Virginia. They barely beat West Virginia. And the thing about the Western, and I'm not trying to be critical, but I'm just trying to be observant. West Virginia game, they won by 3. They were 3-point favorites, so it was a push. And the game did go under. Matter of fact, most of their games have been going under. But in the game against West Virginia, and this bothers me, and it does bother me a great deal because I do put substantial money on these things. West Virginia lost the game by 3, but they shot 16 for 60 from the field. Now, that is obnoxious. My high school, the worst player in my high school team could do better than that. That was horrible. Now, when you win a game by 3 points against a team that shot 16 for 60, I have to say, well, what happened if they went 20 for 60? Well, you'd have lost. And that's still only 33%. So they didn't play all that well until they got to the Xavier game. Now, Xavier came in, and they were an 8.5-point dog, and they just wiped Xavier up. They had no trouble with them whatsoever. Was Xavier, they finally played a game that we all thought they were capable of playing. So that was a big turnaround game for them. And that was their highest rated game since going back to one of the other division teams that they had played all year. So the real question here is, you've got a red-hot South Carolina team against a team that almost never loses, but hadn't played that well until their final game against Xavier. And the question now is, they're moving on. They're in the Final Four. This is big time for Gonzaga and Mark Pugh, a team that hasn't got there before. And did they psychologically break that barrier that says maybe we're not good enough? Because they know they play in a conference that doesn't play that well. The opponents are not that great in that conference. So now they get through this. Now let's look back at the beginning of the year and you analyze this. They did play Florida. I'm talking about Gonzaga. They beat Florida. They beat Iowa State. 2 good teams. Then they beat Arizona. They beat Washington. And Washington's not that great, but they beat them. They beat Tennessee, which is an away game, as an 8-point favorite. They beat them. And, so in the games that they stepped up in class early in the year, back in November, they did very well. Nobody beat them. And they hardly ever lost to the spread. And the only game they lost all year was to BYU after they had a big lead in the first half. So this is a very difficult team to analyze based on their performance, but they're very large. They're very physical. Their guard play is excellent. They have a little bit of a turnover issue that isn't the greatest, especially going against a defense as strong as South Carolina's is. And I think it's a great game to talk about, to analyze, and try to figure it out. But I will say this is going to be a physical game. These guys are going to bump and grind, and Frank Martin's a hell of a coach. And if there's a weakness in either team, if either team finds a weakness in the other side, they'll exploit it because these coaches are good.
Now, the other game is Oregon and North Carolina. We talked about where the sharp money might eventually show there at the right price. Well, there's certainly one thing to back that. That's Oregon's record as an underdog. I mean, they have been money in the bank as a dog. The last 54 times the Ducks have gotten points, they're 38-16 against the spread. That's phenomenal. And it's not a surprise in this sense. Dana Altman he's a great basketball coach, and he's finally getting the national recognition he's deserved for many, many years, going back to his days in the Missouri Valley Conference. And this guy is a terrific basketball coach. I guess you could say that they're spoilers, in a sense, in this tournament. Tough to say that about a number 3 seed, but certainly they proved to be spoilers against the team of Destiny, Michigan. Even though Michigan was a 7 seed, they were riding an unbelievable wave at that time. And Oregon sent them home. And then an easy win, and it was an easy win, against the number 1 seeded Kansas Jayhawks last week in the Elite Eight. They blew them out. The game got a little bit interesting. About 3 or 4 minutes to go. They got it down to 6. Oregon kind of put their offense in stall mode. But then Oregon hit a 3, and that was the end of the game. North Carolina, look at them as a favorite. Look at this, neutral site games as a favorite. Now, obviously, this goes back a few years, so I don't know how much it has to do with this year's squad, but Roy Williams has been the coach for all this. 21-7-3 against the spread. And, they got a great shot from, I think, an unexpected source to win the game against Kentucky, but I thought they were actually the better team in that game anyway. So I'm not, I think the right team won. This is a heck of a matchup. North Carolina's the blue bloods, the pedigrees. They've got all those first-round picks hanging around. Oregon, more talented than people think, and starting to show it. They didn't get a lot of attention because, quite frankly, there's a West Coast bias that exists because people don't see the games. They're up late. They're on late, and the people in the Midwest and East Coast rarely see these teams play in the regular season. So I think Oregon was a little under the radar as to just how good they are. They're a legit squad. I think this is a heck of a game, Jim.
Oh, there's no question. And your analysis of it is excellent, Dave. And, North Carolina is the favorite. They've been the favorite. And we might go back to last year, Dave. I mean, everybody, I'm sure, that follows basketball remembers what happened in the final game last year against Villanova. And that incredible shot at the end and all that. This is a redemption trip for North Carolina. They're trying to get back there and do what they weren't able to do a year ago. It's hard. It's difficult to get back to that game, and they're one step away from getting back to that game. And Oregon's a tough team, and Altman's a good coach. Roy Williams always gets all the talent. They get a lot of talent down there, and he has a lot of blue bloods on that team. No question. This is going to be a hell of a game. I don't see much. Honestly, it can go down to who gets in foul trouble early. Who gets hot early, who misses their free throws at the end. This is a very tough game to break apart and to see where we know the favorite is. They deserve to be favored, but maybe the question is, do they deserve to be favored by this much? And from what we can see is the Sharps don't think so. The Sharps are looking to play the dog. There's no question about it.
We're going to have a free play every day here on the podcast. So let's get to it. I will remind you, of course, that you can get free plays every day in a recorded message at 888-294-1970. And Jim, more free plays via text message.
You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Jim Feist Sports. And you can get free plays daily by texting GAME, G-A-M-E, to 25827. We'll send you a free play right to your cell phone immediately. Baseball starts this weekend. I was 212 and 160 in baseball last year, mostly underdogs and small favorites. If you'd have bet $100 on my plays last year, you'd have won $4,247. If you'd have bet $500, it'd have been over $20,000. Sign up for the entire season. The cost is $1,899 at jimfeist.com or $499 a month. And there's about 5 months of baseball there. So it's a serious sport. We beat it good. We beat it like a drum, and we did last year, of course. And Dave did the same thing. Dave didn't mention his baseball price, I don't think, this year, and I think he should. But you can go to jimfeist.com and get any and all of this. Dave, I think you should mention your baseball offer.
Well, the same price, $18.99 if you go to the website. And the monthly is going to be the same as well. But we get that first month special for $350, and that includes the other sports as well. So, good time to call the toll-free number and get in on that. And that number is 855-472-2577. Free play. Going to go to the NHL, and I've been making money going against the LA Kings. Now, this is the end of a great era. for the Kings. 2 Stanley Cups. They've had some really good squads, but they're getting old. And this looks like the end of the line. I think you're going to see them break up this team at the end of the season. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're now, I believe it's 11 or 13 points back with not many games to play. They know it's over. And you're seeing a tired team down the stretch. Now, last night I took Edmonton against them. It was a close game on the final score, 2-1. And the Kings played a good second period in that game. But if you looked at the game, Edmonton actually had 2 goals come off the scoreboard, one on a goalie interference and the other one on an inadvertent whistle on a delayed penalty. The whistle shouldn't have blown, and it cost them a goal. So this should have been an easier win for Edmonton. Bottom line is they won the game, and we got paid as we had the Oilers. And that was an interesting situation because Edmonton was looking to clinch the playoff spot, their first one in 10 years. It's been a long dry spell for the Oilers. Those bad days are done with Connor McDavid and company. This is going to be a great club in years to come. Now you got a similar situation tonight. Calgary, which hasn't gone 10 years without missing the playoffs, or without making the playoffs, but they did miss the playoffs last year. They're in a position to clinch their playoff spot tonight. And interestingly enough, 2 years ago, they were in the same position against the same team and got the clinch. That doesn't have much to do with tonight, but I can tell you Calgary is very excited about this. The place is going to be nuts tonight. They're playing really good hockey. And the Kings' second of back-to-backs, not good. This is a sign of an old team that's kind of wearing down. They're 0-5 in their last 5, playing with no rest. They have to go into what I think is going to be a hornet's nest tonight. You know, it's interesting. When I wrote up Edmonton was my free play yesterday. But when I wrote it up, I said, boy, this line looks ridiculously low to me at 125. I thought the line should have been about 140. And it almost looked like a trap. Sometimes you can overanalyze things, and I'm glad I didn't here because I just went ahead and played Edmonton anyway. You could argue the same thing tonight. I don't know why this line's not more toward 150 or 160. I think that's actually the right price tonight. 135 to me is a bargain. And I'm going to take the Calgary Flames as home favorites in this game. I don't generally like laying that kind of a price, even 135. I like small favorites and underdogs in the NHL, but I think the situation is strong here for Calgary. And if you want to back it up with something, you might want to do a little sweetener with a puck line play on Calgary, -1.5, about +220 or +230 on that. And I don't normally ever play puck lines, but I think you've got a situation here where there might not be much left in the Kings tank, physically or mentally. I think Calgary's going to get him tonight. And the Flames are the free play that we're going to use here on today's edition of Proline Daily. And it is a personal service play. This is not some game I'm pulling out as an extra opinion. I'm definitely playing this game. My customers are on this game, and I think it's going to be a winner, Jim. Well,
you're pretty good at that stuff, Dave, and your baseball preseason stuff has been red hot as well.
That's so good. I think we're 9-1 in the last 10, and have a couple today.
Well, that's awesome. So, Dave, we are now officially Raider Nation here, and
yes.
And everybody's been celebrating and happy, and except the people in Oakland, they're not too happy.
No, there's not much they could do. They can't build 2 stadiums. They didn't address this situation for 20 years? I mean, it's not like this just popped up out of thin air. And if Oakland people want to be upset with somebody, be upset with the 49ers. Because if the 49ers weren't as stubborn as they've been on the territorial rights, they could have had a situation similar to the Meadowlands where they had 1 stadium for 2 football teams, as they do with the Giants and Jets. And nobody's complaining about that. It's not like they had to build separate stadiums for the 2. They're in the same region. They could well have done that, and we would not be having this conversation now because the Oakland Raiders would stay the Oakland Raiders. But the 49ers, they never budged on that. They would not give up their territorial rights to San Jose specifically, which is a big area. I guess Santa Clara as well. Obviously, that's where the football stadium is. And that kind of left Oakland between a rock and a hard place because you can't have multi-purpose stadiums anymore. They're not acceptable. How ridiculous has it looked the last few years with the infield grass showing up for Oakland Raider football games because they play in a baseball stadium. There just wasn't anything Oakland could do about it, and the team was going to move someplace. That is a certainty. They were not going to stay in Oakland. I think it's a good thing for Oakland, and I know Oakland people who are listening right now want to jump through the screen and kill me, but I do think it's a good thing because now they can set about the business of getting a new state-of-the-art baseball stadium for the A's. Financially, it actually makes more sense because you've only got 8 NFL dates plus a couple of exhibition games. And it's not like Oakland is good. We're not comparing Oakland and Las Vegas. Las Vegas will have the same amount of home dates for football, but this is a tourist attraction. And we're going to have lots of other big events in the stadium. Oakland is not a tourist attraction. That's just the reality of it. So financially, they're much better off putting their ducks in a row on this baseball stadium project where they'll have 81 home dates and also, a great tradition. The Oakland A's have had some phenomenal runs over the years, and I'd like to see that team become really competitive again. And in a market that size, with a new baseball stadium, Oakland's not going to have to, the A's are not going to have to play the small market game anymore. They can play with the big boys. That's a gigantic market. So I actually think this is going to work out really well for Oakland as a city, for the A's as a baseball franchise, because now they won't have to worry about losing them. And they'll have something to celebrate there. The basketball team's moving across the bay next year to San Francisco. That's just the way that's just the nature of the beast. It's a better location. And the football team is heading to Las Vegas. So rather than sulk about it, Oakland fans should really get behind the baseball team and make sure the city follows through on these plans to build a stadium. I think on the waterfront, that'll be something the city can be really proud of.
Dave, your analysis is great, and I agree. What do you think about the next couple of years about the Raiders playing in Oakland? It seems like it's a very caustic, potentially violent situation.
If I were them, to be honest, I would get out. Sam Boyd Stadium here is not a facility that can be used for the NFL. They can try and dress it up, but quite frankly, it's terrible. I think what they should do is contact Cal Berkeley or Stanford and see about playing their home games in one of those locations. It wouldn't be a long jaunt for the fans. I think they'd have less of a bad taste in their mouth. And honestly, they're probably better stadiums to play football in anyway.
Well, you're right. It seems awkward. It seems awkward that they would stay there for 2 years. It just really does. I know it's going to take a while to build a stadium in Vegas here, and especially if they put a dome on it, because that takes extra time.
It's not going to be ready till 2020.
Yeah, and San Diego's available too. I mean, they don't have a team.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. That's too far for the Raider fans to travel. And honestly, Qualcomm, there's a reason the Chargers aren't staying in San Diego. Qualcomm it's not as bad as the Coliseum, but it's old and decrepit, and it doesn't have any of the amenities that today's stadiums have. I think they should stay closer to home for now. A lot of the Oakland fans are going to make the trip to Las Vegas once the Raiders are here. It's not that long a plane flight, and it'll only be 8 times a year anyway. So I think they're going to still have a lot of their fan base that'll make the trip. But they can drive to Palo Alto or Berkeley. Now, I don't know if either one of those can be done, but that's what I would be doing if I was the Raiders. I'd be trying to make a deal with Cal or Stanford. Now, those facilities would be just fine and wouldn't be far for the fans to drive. There'd be a lot of other fans in the area who probably would say, you know what, let's go to the games. Why not? We're right here.
Right. Well, yeah, I'm sure it's going to work out. They'll figure it out, but it's been great. I'm looking forward to it. It's great to have Vegas actually be recognized as a city that can do a lot, and it's not just a gambling city. And maybe we get out of the Stone Age and realize that gambling is not such a bad thing. And
well, look, we do know this. The NFL is not going to be objecting to the games being on the board here, and that tells you something right there. For the NFL to do that, and by the way, I don't know where Mike Francesa gets his information, but maybe you ought to call a sports book sometime. WFAN yesterday, Francesa reporting that he's been told that home games will not be on the board. That is false information that he did not check with. He must not have checked with a single Las Vegas sportsbook director, and that's a bad job on his part.
Dave, does that come under the heading of fake news?
Well, apparently.
Since that's a phrase that's being talked about lately in the political area, but yes. You there, Dave?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. I think that covers it for the.
Yeah, I think
Dave.
Wraps it up. We'll do it again tomorrow. Thanks for joining us, and we'll keep it rolling. I'll have another free play tomorrow. Hopefully tonight's will work out, and we hope you'll keep on listening every day to another edition of Proline.
Thanks, Dave.